to time as possible, but I think we'll give it just another moment or two. Sure, everybody who wants to attend is here. So I'm going to aim for starting at 2 minutes past the hour, just to give everybody time to get here. Okay, if you're ready, Julian, I think we'll start now.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. No matter your natural world time zone, you are welcome to the VWEC Eduverse Expert Speaker Series here in the Plaza. My name is A Cup of Tay, also known as John O'Connor, and I am pleased to be your host for this talk, where I am joined by Mehdi Martian, who is our co-host today. So just before we start, I want to let you know that this session is being live streamed on YouTube, and that comes with subtitles or captions for those who might need them. We're also recording this, so the presentation can be shared on YouTube later on. Following the talk, there will be time for questions, which you may ask in local chat or voice, or both if you like. Co-host Mehdi will be on hand to help with transcribing questions also, but please be patient as this is not always an easy task. So now let's get started. Our speaker today is Julian Reyes, founder and director of the Virtual Worlds Museum, whose mission is to explore, preserve, and showcase the evolution of immersive worlds. In recognition of his contributions to the XR industry, he was awarded the 2025 Aurea Impact Award, alongside Lisa Egger of Arrival Space. Julian has also held positions at Meta, Cisco Systems, and ExpoNet. Additionally, he received training from the Meta Oculus Launchpad, Oculus Start programs, and the Every Realm Metaverse Academy. As part of the Virtual Worlds Museum effort, Julian Reyes is currently working on mapping immersive worlds. Julian has spoken at AWE, Meta Center Global Week, the Spectrum Business Conference, and was invited to judge at the MIT XR Hackathon and Apollos Web XR Awards. Julian is also the founder of KeyFrame Entertainment, which produced media projects, events, and 3D worlds. So it is my great pleasure to introduce and hand over to Julian Reyes, also known as ManyNamesKEYFRAME. Julian, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate that great introduction and also want to thank you for the invitation to speak. My company that I founded over 20 years ago is Keyframe Entertainment. That is also my DJ name for many years, as I'm a performer in a very obscure style of electronic dance music. And I also have explored different vast of musical styles under a music producer named ManyNames. That's where my name comes from, and you can find that music in Spotify and SoundCloud under ManyNames. Um, Speaking about the Virtual Worlds Museum, it is a digital museum exploring, preserving, and showcasing immersive world platforms. And this is a very passionate topic for me because I feel that a lot of the platforms are microcosms of a bigger whole, but that story is not really told. As most worlds kind of uh, completely immerse themselves and the communities evolve, but the term metaverse is something that has kind of enlightened many and inspired, but also confused a lot of people. So I want to kind of frame my perspective of the metaverse before I start my presentation. And I differ in opinion with a lot of my colleagues in this, and I want to explain my reasoning, which is I believe that the metaverse is not here yet. I believe that virtual worlds are the seeds of the metaverse. And, there's some argument about the definition and is it here or not? And my reasoning is when Neil Stephenson created the term, the virtual worlds already existed. So you cannot say that the metaverse is just virtual worlds or landscapes that are persistent because if the term was invented while it was already operational, I believe that the term means a future that is different from the current state of things that when he created the term. So the way that I see it is that in the future there will be a communications layer. That is the metaverse, not the interoperability between all of the platforms. That's, I believe like an impossible vision. But I do believe that there's a future where users and visitors can be in any platform and communicate with others and be able to find themselves, whether through teleportation, deep linking, or many different ways to interoperably move your avatar and find your location or find your friends through that communication layer. Now, the project of the Virtual Worlds Museum started with my desire to create a three-dimensional visualization of all of the platforms. So my first my first professional job in my career was to create 3D animations for court trials. So I started in the late 90s creating animations that were used in court trials, like accident recreations, forensic animations, medical. So I've been working in 3D for many, many years, but I also have had a career in entertainment and in creating films about electronic music culture and festival culture. So I have had two parallel careers, and I believe that gives me a really interesting vantage point that most technologists or developers don't have a window, which is as a performer, I am invited to play music in different countries. I've DJed in Hungary, I've DJed in the UK, in Guatemala, and whenever I, show up to these stages, I'm entering a virtual world. I'm entering a world outside of myself because this audience now gets to experience the curation that I bring forth. So I'm mentioning that so you can see the alignment of how virtual worlds are uh, digital, but they're also um, in physical nature a different perspective, a different style, and that's what music festivals represent, right? They're creating an ambience, they're creating their own environment with their own language, with their own deco, with their own sense of identity, and I think that's a really interesting point to make as we continue this journey. So the main part that I want the Virtual Worlds Museum and my team that we work for is to really highlight education. And we highlight education through the Spotlight video series that I will mention later in this presentation. And then the preservation of the virtual worlds through exhibits. And these are digital exhibits that live in other platforms. XR ethics is extremely important. So I'm part of the XR Guild, and I am actually a co-lead of the evolution of their library. And we're about to launch a new version 2.0 of the library. And this is like articles about ethics and privacy and AI. And it really is a great place for researchers to come and learn more about the ethical part of virtual worlds, and you can find that at xrguild.org. And then I think it's very important for community building, art, and events for people to understand the vastness of virtual worlds. My background outside of creating demonstrative evidence for court trials was also creating a lot of films in electronic music. And these films explored how these communities thrive and how there is a link between shamanic culture and modern electronic music culture. I always like to see things in their whole, and that's what the film Electronic Awakening represented was curating all of the artists that found a thread, a common thread between the mystical sides of music and why it really inspires people to the state of bliss. And when you're in a dance floor of 1,000 people, how does that entrainment system happen with the music and everybody enters a theta wave system? I also spent some time in Meta as an AR producer, working in their avatars team. I worked in virtual worlds in various platforms. And my company, Keyframe Entertainment, is the container that I experimented with all of these different projects. And the Virtual Worlds Museum is a project of Keyframe. As I mentioned before, my objective was to create a 3D visualizer of the virtual world. To me, it doesn't make any sense to track virtual worlds in a list form or just in a spreadsheet. So I want to create a 3D visualization where you can put on a headset or you can enter desktop mode and you can actually rotate around and see the ecosystem, almost like a constellation of all virtual worlds. But and I've spoken about this at conferences, but the more research I did, the more I realized that there's so many platforms out there. And then there's forks of these platforms and different technologies. And I that's what really gave me the impetus to create the Virtual Worlds Museum. And the reason it's a museum is because I also want to focus on the worlds of the past, the worlds that have been discontinued, what we call sunset worlds. So this is the crux of the project. I believe that there is a misconception of the term virtual world and virtual reality. A lot of people in the mainstream kind of like think that it's the same thing, but I believe that a virtual world is a concept that is ancient. The way that I see it is what is heaven but a virtual world? What the Babylonians were talking about, the Egyptians were talking about, anything that's outside of our common reality is a virtual world. Plato's allegory of the cave, or kids around a table playing Dungeons and Dragons, they're creating virtual worlds. Now, where the clarification that I like to make is the digital virtual worlds are different, right? There's the concept of a virtual world, and then there's the digital virtual worlds. And in 1974, Maze War was the first game that connected computers inside of a lab where you can actually interact with other characters in a game environment. And in 1986, 85, 86, Habitat was, in my opinion, the first virtual world where avatars would interact. Now, I completely understand that before that, the HUDs and the MUDs and the multi-user dungeons were part of the evolution. But the way that I'm tracking virtual worlds are the worlds where you um, interact as an avatar and that you have agency to create your own world, right? That's very important. Whereas a game, you don't have that agency. A game, you're there to, follow the story and you're forced into an activity. To me, an open world is that you can create a space and you can invite others to attend and meet you there. So the Virtual Worlds Museum is a platform that curates the virtual world platforms in 6 exhibits. And these exhibits are being built right now. If you look at the color coding, the purple ones are the ones that are completed. The uh, other two that are in progress and the plan in the future. And I want to explain those because this is really important. At the end of our development cycle, we will have these 6 exhibits living in different platforms and all interconnected to the Virtual Worlds Museum website. The first is the WebXR exhibit, and that has been completed in Arrival Space, which is a platform created in Austria by Lisa Egger and her team. And in that experience, we showcase the worlds that are web native. All you need is a browser, and there's nothing to download, and you can experience those. And those are VR Land, Frame, and to name a few. So you can experience those and find them in our website at virtualworlds.museum. The second exhibit is completed in Horizon Worlds, and that showcases worlds that you have to wear a headset or you have to download something into your computer. So in there we show VR chat, rec room, and that's also being built. And the hubs are being built, but the exhibit is there. And I completely understand that a lot of the worlds that we're mapping are interchangeable. Some can be in multiple categories, but the reasoning for creating a modular system is that in the future, if any world changes its categorization, then we can map it. And I think that's my predecessors, when they were mapping them in a spreadsheet, and those categorizations kind of go stale, or a world dies or a world changes, there's no way to track their evolution. And that's why I believe this system is a little different, because if a world becomes sunset, then it goes into the sunset exhibit, which means that it's been defunct. Or if a world turns into a game, or if a world turns into blockchain, there's a way to move them around so they will always find a place within this categorization methodology. The sunset exhibit is the third. I have not um, created it in a platform yet. I'm considering RP1. I think Second Life would be a great place to put it, to place it, to create it, because when a lot of worlds become sunset, Second Life is a place that people come and kind of um, create the next version of their identities and um, their virtual experience. The Sunset exhibit highlights all of the games that have been defunct, and you can find those on our website. The games exhibit, I am thinking of creating that in Roblox. I'm currently speaking with different developers, and I'm trying to reach Roblox directly. And these are the worlds that are um, game oriented, but you can create um, your own space. Like, for example, Fortnite has Fortnite Islands where you can actually create your own area. I also want to highlight game museums. these are physical game museums all over the world. And if you go to our website, you can find, we've posted a blog of all of the game museums in the world. And I would love this experience to be a place for people to see all of these different physical museums that showcase all of the game worlds. And I'm currently working with a professor who is actually interviewing all of these game museums around the world and have that book be the companion to this experience. The specialized exhibit is the fifth. And we're planning to create this. There's a few platforms that have offered us the space to create it. I want to team up with studios to help us build it. And the specialized exhibit is all of the niche worlds, all of the worlds that are um, kind of like walled gardens or enterprise or omniverse or simulations, all of the worlds that are education based or kids based, all of the ones that require some type of specialized knowledge or access or a paywall in order for you to enter them. And I believe this will be the most intricate and vast uh, exhibit, because I will also want to talk about the open source worlds, right? And the open source worlds to me really hint at what a possible open metaverse in the future can be like. And I'm also part of the open metaverse interoperability group, and we meet every Wednesday and we talk about what are the different platforms, what are the different file formats, what are the different ways that we can explore an open metaverse. And also, that's hints at what the Metaverse Standards Forum is doing with standards and file formats and so forth. And then the last one, the last exhibit we want to build is the blockchain exhibit. And that would be all of the worlds that are, uh, blockchain based. So your Decentraland, your Sandbox, your HyperFi. And all of these exhibits will point back to the website in some way or another, and then the website then becomes the focal point where you as a user can find more information about these worlds and really view the landscape of virtual worlds as an ecosystem. And you'll hear me say that time and time again, because to me that is our main mission, right? Is to preserve the worlds of the past, to curate the worlds of the present, and to prepare for the worlds of the future. And those are AI prompted worlds. Right now, there's technologies where you can prompt the world into existence. And we're actually building our own world. And we have already incorporated Blockade Labs AI skybox capabilities. And we're working on an AI agent, which would be the museum docent. And we really want to remain at the forefront of those technologies where you can prompt a world into existence, and that will democratize the way worlds are built. And where does that put us? That put us at the beginning of the internet, right? One of my advisors, Terry Schuessler, who was there at the big ground zero at when the internet first evolved, says this in his talks, that first there was like 9 websites, right? Main websites that were created after the standards were formed. Then it went to 20,000 websites, and then it went to millions of websites, right? And that's what happens with WYSIWYGs and Dreamweaver, and the people were able to create their own websites. And it was not just the webmaster that had the ability to bring a digital presence. And we're starting to see how AI can create images. And then now we see how AI creates videos, and we're entering a world where AI will create virtual worlds. And we want to map the evolution of that. So we not only want to be the directory of virtual worlds, but also find ways for people to find their best environment, or be able to find the community that they want to be a part of or they want to create. The open source worlds are really, really interesting to me. We've started mapping the open simulator. I spoke in there recently. The Hubs Foundation has taken over the mantle for Mozilla Hubs. So they're working on kind of like moving forward that technology. And we want to create a hub there as well. Matrix, Overtive, this Akai. and the wolf territories. I have a meeting with scheduled with Lone Wolf to talk about what is the best way to represent these open source worlds. And I really think that this perspective and this kind of ethos of open worlds really important, especially when you couple that with Blender, which is also open source, and people are able to create their own environments and have their own digital identities, and they're not being kind of owned by a bigger company. They create their own environment. So I'm really passionate about mapping them in a way that they feel represented, but with their permission and with their inclusion. I don't want the Virtual Worlds Museum to be this outside force that just categorizes without any inclusion. So as I'm building this with my team, we actually send the information over to the platform and say, does this work for you? How does how does this portrayal of your platform work with you? And I know I took a big risk by calling it a museum, given that it already has a negative connotation in the physical world. You know, there's the imperialistic uh, perspective, but I did that on purpose because I want to challenge that definition, right? I want to create a new definition for the digital world, for the metaverse. We should not allow stigmas of terminologies from the past. I want to create a new, more inclusive way of looking at the future of museums in the digital realm. This part is really exciting to me. The Spotlight video series. So if you recall, there were 6 exhibits. Now, each each exhibit is being coupled with a spotlight video series where we go into the hub that we've created in that world and we capture video of it, but we do it in narrative form. And what we do is we have 2 avatars, which is Sehu. It's voiced by me, but it's to represent a artificial intelligence archivist, and in Kenzo, which is voiced by Ivo Heining. And Ivo has been part of the Second Life community for over 20 years. Also, an advisor on the project is Wagner James Au, and we work with Carlos Austin, who's one of the most amazing videographers of the metaverse platforms. And what we do is we begin the shoot from the Virtual Worlds Museum hub, which has not been created yet, like the main area, and they actually go into a portal and record a video interviewing the platform owners or the world builders. And that is really like unique because now we're creating the most comprehensive video catalog of virtual worlds that has ever been attempted. And think about that, because in reality, nobody in their right mind has the the time or the desire to make username and passwords for every platform out there. So what we're doing is we're creating a video catalog where you can see these technologies, experience the cultures, kind of the anthropological definitions that are happening, and we are creating videos to for longevity. So years from now, that can be utilized for research, but also that all of the platforms are being seen in this way. We're also experimenting with ways of getting videos from defunct worlds and trying to recreate what these 3D spaces are with AI recreating from videos. And that's a project that I haven't announced yet on our website, but that's part of our archival efforts. Now, how does the Virtual Worlds Museum um, give, and how does it contribute to the legacy of virtual worlds, and how does it work with the Virtual Worlds Education Consortium? And this is a really important part to note, that it's not only the exhibits, it's not only the hubs that we're creating, it's not only the Spotlight video series, but it's also the website. The website itself is a very a useful resource. In the website, we have all of the a lot of the books of the metaverse. We even have books that you could download directly from the website. We have the list of use cases of XR. We actually featured Terry Proto's VR marketing, which is the largest um, collection of use cases of XR. He's got over 700 um, different articles talking how companies use XR in their projects. So if you are a designer or a 3D modeler, or you're trying to create some type of deck or presentation to sell your services, you come to our website and we direct you to all of the tools that you need to get more information for the betterment of your company. We also feature all of the XR ethics organizations that are partners of ours. And then we also have a directory of all of the XR university programs. And if you go to our blog, it's under the About page. You will see an entire page dedicated to all of the XR programs. And it's exciting to see that there's so many universities and a lot of them want to work with us. And we also have the global directory of game museums, which we're utilizing to help us with our um, game exhibit. Um, and that's also in the blog page under About Us. Now, the what we have planned for the future is the World Builder directory. Now, imagine you come to our website and you look at a platform, a metaverse platform, and then you can find out who are the world builders, what are the events that you can find, what is the technology stack. You can come to the website and really learn about each of the platforms because all of that information is scattered right now. And what we're doing is we're magnetizing all of the information of virtual worlds and bringing it under one place in order to share it. And we're making all of this open source. So our funding mechanism is crowdfunding campaigns. We've actually attempted two already, and they have not been successful. And I want to partner with more, aligned companies to go for a third attempt. And I'm sure when we share the value and a narrative of what we're doing, like people in academia love what we're doing. We have Henry Lowood, who is the um, curator and the archivist of Stanford, loves what we're doing and actually has offered all the support. And we have many universities, but industry does not understand what we're doing, right? They always ask me, what's your ROI and what's your business plan? And I tell them, I'm not a startup. This is a preservation effort. So we're launching a sponsorship for the exhibits. And the offering that we give companies is if they help us sponsor one of the exhibits, we'll create a space for them or a world for them with a chronology and a timeline of their company. So instead of just like a name of, this was funded by so and so, we will actually create a space that talks about the origin of the company, who the founders are, and think of it like a mini museum of the funder. And I think that's a really compelling way to immortalize a company that helps us build the exhibit. And then, of course, we're trying to seek grants, and the the development of this project really depends on the support of the community. So I really appreciate the platform for us to share this because the essence of it is to really tell the story of virtual worlds from a macro perspective. And with that in mind, we're also creating virtual world timelines. So these are the timelines of all of the different worlds and their beginning point, where they're at in their development. And I'm also working with Avi Varsiv and the XR Guild. He's created timeline of terminology terms. Like, when was the first time cyberspace was used? When was the first time, metaverse was used? And all of the different iterations. And the map is really impressive and amazing. And we're actually working with them in creating a map of all the virtual worlds and a timeline of all the terminologies. And you'll be able to see that in 3D. Now, I know this is the part that's kind of like we're already in pipe dreaming land because I know there's a lot that I've conveyed, but imagine a page where you can go to and people can book their own world hops. Right now, traditionally, world hops are created by the organizers or the owners of the worlds or the event, but what if a person wanted to learn about a virtual world and they went into a website and they can select the worlds and they can select the guide and they themselves can book the world hops, and then you can have volunteer guides that can go and not only go world hops, but what we call in the project Meta Traversal portal crawls, which is instead of just going from world to world, you can go from platform to platform. And we've been working on that for a while. So Meta Traversal, if you Google that, you can find that project. And we've already filmed many cases where we actually traverse through portals from one platform to another. And we're now utilizing deep app linking, where in VR you enter a portal and you go into another platform without having to close and open. It's really exciting um, uh, experience that it's so forward thinking. And the project there is Ben Irwin and Ivo Heining and myself and Karen Alexander and Julie Smithson. And also Neil Trevette was part of the genesis of that, and Neil Trevette went on to build the Metaverse Standards Forum. So there's a lot of history and connectivity between this project and other projects that I'm aligned with, like the Virtual World Society, the XR Women Group, the interoperability groups that really want to focus on the future of the metaverse. We're also building a wiki, a virtual worlds wiki, and I know that there's many attempts out there. So what we're doing is like utilizing the best practices of those. But imagine a wiki where you can learn, about the game engines or how to build worlds or how to create avatars or how to, as I mentioned, create these portal crawls or all of the information that you need. And really important is not only mapping the virtual world platforms, but the technology stack that create them. For example, Frame VR is created in Babylon JS. Horizon Worlds is created in Unity. Most people don't know that. A lot of people think that Meta created Horizon Worlds with their own technology, but they're actually using Unity. So if we create a map of all of the virtual world technology stacks, we can see which are more alignment and which have the connectivity potential to become interoperable. And then lastly, we're creating an AI agent that's fueled with the virtual worlds wiki. So when you go into a world, you'll be able to speak to an AI docent, an avatar that answers these questions about these virtual worlds or can guide you into your experience or find the communities that are in alignment with you and so forth. And we're in the process of creating that right now. So now I wanted to finish the talk with what are the challenges and opportunities of this virtual worlds. And I think it's important to look at that because that leads to the different conversations that lets us know where we're at and lets us know where we need to go in the future, right? And the challenges I feel are the technical limitations and scalability. If you are a small company trying to create virtual worlds, it's a little bit difficult. You kind of have to go towards the bigger platforms and create worlds in their technology stack, but that's changing. For example, Captic VR Land, you're able to work with them and they'll give you a white label solution. So after you build their virtual world with them, it can go directly on your website. So instead of having to go into a platform to go into that virtual world, you're using your own server to access that virtual world. And I think that's part of the evolution of how virtual worlds will begin to proliferate in the future. Accessibility and inclusivity, that's very important. We have to see which of the platforms are phone friendly because not everybody has access to a headset. And inclusivity is making sure that everyone that wants to be a part of the future of immersive worlds has some way to create and learn. And I believe that's what the Virtual Worlds Museum is. It's really a hub of education, so you can know where to start. Whether you're a beginner or an expert, you can contribute to the evolution of the future metaverse. engaging content. And by that, I don't mean games. I mean different content that is specific to communities or ethnic groups or professional hobbyists, or like really finding a way to connect users that love certain topics that are in different virtual world platforms. So think about this. If you have a passion for a certain hobby or for a certain a train of thought, you can go to the Virtual Worlds Museum and find where these other people are in other platforms, and then have events that can now be cross pollinate, right? And standards and interoperability, that's a big that is a big challenge right now, and my hat goes off to the Metaverse Standards Forum for trying to create some of those. Privacy, security, safety, and governance. I believe that there's a stigma on the crypto worlds and on the blockchain, and because it's associated with a lot of shady past efforts. But from the governance side, there is potential there. So I don't discount what they're trying to do. I know a lot of people have an aversion to the term Web3, but I feel that there is some value to tracking the worlds that are trying to put these worlds into a blockchain where you have ownership of your avatar, ownership over your identity, ownership over your world. And I think that's important. And then the safety, security, and privacy, it's something that we look at in the ethics side of it with XR Guild and other companies that really look at that. Another example would be XRSI and XRA. Monetization and economic models. So not all platforms have the ability to create economic models, but if you look at the vastness of the virtual worlds, the ones that are working, the ones that have included these economic models, I believe are the ones that are going to have longevity. And Second Life is a great example of that. So what are the opportunities? As you well know, immersive education and training, I believe what the Virtual Worlds Education Consortium is a beacon for this. So this is awesome. But imagine having access or showcasing what is being done here in other worlds. So I offer a partnership in order for us to like continue proliferating the message of education that doesn't just stay siloed in Second Life, but can be showcased in different worlds. And to that end, I'm actually working with creating a poster in one of the VWEC worlds that can link to the Virtual Worlds Museum. So I would love to talk about future collaboration and getting the message out into different platforms. Innovative commerce and business models. This will allow visitors to, be part of the gig economy, sell their avatars, create worlds, like really create a marketplace that's fair and just. Social interaction and community building. That is another way to bring communities together in real life. And I think eventually you will see platforms that will be created with a physical and digital, a digital twin. So instead of having a world that is just imagined, we will start to see more worlds that are mirrors of real life. And I think that's super important to, to, to track and see the evolution of that. Entertainment and cultural experiences, and I think those are my favorite. If I go into a VR experience and I see some dances or cultural storytelling of other groups, I love that because I'm learning through immersive technology about something that I can be immersed in and have new information that I'm not that I can't reach, and it's very different than just watching a video. Entrepreneurship, we talked about, and technological advancements of interoperability. And that leads us back to my definition of the metaverse, which is a future where we can connect with others through communication. So if I am in Rec Room, I can talk to somebody in Hyperfi, or if I'm in Hyperfi, I can talk to somebody in Second Life and Decentraland and Sandbox, and you can say, meet me there, or go to the teleportation at the Virtual Worlds Museum hub, or you log off and you log on. But that I see as the future of the the metaverse, is the ability to communicate with anybody that's in these virtual worlds. And then I wanted to give a shout out to my team. I think uh, this is like an evolving group of individuals that volunteer for what the mission of exploring virtual worlds. Paige Danziger is amazing. She's a builder in Horizon World. She's actually been working in at museums for many, many years. Aaron, I met at Meta when we were working there. He's at Reality Labs right now. Jared Beans, you can find all of this information in our team page in our website. He was with Microsoft for 14 years, and he's an amazing technologist. Kyle is our design manager, and he is a wizard at creating 3D assets. And he's actually the person that taught me about Kadeem, which is an application that you actually put an image in and it creates a 3D model. So we've been able to create 3D models from images, and that's part of our working pipeline, which is if you put a prompt in a virtual world, you should be able to have that prompt create an image and then have a different AI create a three-dimensional asset. So we're working on that. Uh, Evo Heining at the bottom left is an advisor, and she's been working on the Second Life for a very long time. She actually showed the United Nations Second Life 20 years ago. Tom Borstuff, he's written many books about the metaverse and Second Life. Rachel Newport, she's our project manager. She's been working on actually connecting different groups that are creating VR in Mexico, Guatemala, and Vietnam. So she's passionate about helping communities that are outside of the U.S. really leverage. Steve Van Loon on the bottom right, he is our developer, senior engineer. He is really the first person that I work with in developing the 3D visualization map, and I'm really honored to be working with him. His project is called Neurophile, and then Carlos Austin on the bottom right is the videographer for the metaverse. So if you ever have a video that you went shot, this is the master of all of the platforms that I've seen, and again, you can find them in our website. And I want to thank you all for inviting me to explain what the Virtual Worlds Museum is. This is a project of love. I see it as a preservation effort, and it's very difficult, I must say, because it, only certain people understand what we're trying to build here. And I welcome input and I welcome your support. And if you want to reach me, there's a QR code for my email address. The website is at the bottom, virtualworlds.museum. And we will continue building these hubs in different platforms and interconnect them all. And when we achieve that goal, the Virtual Worlds Museum will be the first brand that actually has presence in all of the metaverse platforms through the exhibit, through the Spotlight video series. And I welcome participation, and I'm very thankful and grateful for your inviting me to speak. Thank you.
Wow, Julian, my head is spinning. The scope and scale of what you've already achieved, but also what you are intending, is just so broad. But also what you're doing is so very important. I'm giving a paper at the upcoming Virtual Worlds Best Practices in Education conference on the history of VR. So I've been researching it for the last year or two, and you've touched on a few of the things that I'm looking at. But man, the scope you're working on is so much greater than what I've thought of. That I'm just, I think I need to slink away and shut up. But so well done, and thank you so much for a really fascinating overview of a massive vision.
Thank you so much.
So,
There was a question about, will you have a main hub area on your own or another world? I want to clarify that. And thank you
yeah,
for the kind words, John. I really appreciate that.
you're welcome, Julie.
We're creating hubs in all of the virtual world platforms, right? Right now, if you look at our website, we've created over 15, maybe 17 hubs in different worlds. The one that we're creating in Second Life is really, really interesting. Our hub here will be in Wagner James Au's land, which was he has for many, many years, because he was an embedded reporter for Second Life, and he wrote the book Making a Metaverse That Matters, and he's helping us create a hub here. And in the hub, there's already a memorial for Snow Crash that Neil Stephenson himself has blessed, that he gave approval for. So that our hub in Second Life is really exciting. We also want to create an AI agent that you can speak to. But the objective is to create hubs in all of the worlds. And for that, we really need participation from developers in all of the platforms.
Fantastic. It just gets more and more exciting the more you speak. Here's a question from Val. She said, you suggested that virtual worlds are the seeds of the metaverse, and I agree. However, I believe one must be embodied in an avatar to enter the metaverse. Without an avatar, we are communicating through connected apps, but the metaverse is not an app, it is a place. Do you agree the avatar is essential, Julian?
100%. And that's why we begin our mapping at Habitat, because Habitat was the first virtual world to actually use the term avatar. And the term avatar, a few years prior, was actually appropriated from the Sanskrit language to mean a god embodied on earth. So yes, I believe that 100% an avatar is essential for the digital virtual museum mapping. Now, I have a philosophy that is really important, and it's out of the scope of the digital virtual worlds, but after we're finished with this, I feel that you can create a matrix to define the virtual worlds in a historical context. So you can have, for example, think of a matrix, almost like a horoscope, right? You have 12 different areas, and you can have the virtual worlds that are ancient and that are imbued in religion and in ancient traditions, right? Then you would have another category for the virtual worlds that are media. So you will have your Lord of the Rings and your Matrix and your movies and your books, right? And then what the sliver of the virtual worlds that we're building is the digital virtual worlds. So then there's the dream worlds. Those are virtual worlds that happen in the dreamscape. But that's for another talk for another day.
Great. We'll have to have you back, I think. You've opened up something big here. Val has another question, but just before that, Mehdi had a question as well. A simple one. He just says, how can we help? So we might hold that for a moment in mind and address it later. But Val asks, I'm really intrigued by the use of blockchain to move worlds around. Do you think that will play a role in what we call interoperability of the metaverse?
Yeah, I've been tracking that very closely, and the reasoning for us to build a blockchain exhibit as the last one is because I'm really waiting for things to shake out. I've been investing in all of the crypto wallets and all of the crypto that are virtual worlds connected, right? For a very long time, and I think I want to build the exhibit in HyperFi. I'm not 100% sure yet, but to answer your question, I don't think it's essential that blockchain is part of the metaverse definition, but I do feel that it's plausible that the interoperability can happen, because I've seen what NFTs can do in virtual worlds. I did a tour of Somnium Space with Kathy Hackle a few years ago, and the CEO of Somnium Space had a NFT avatar, and he got into his NFT car and he drove around the virtual world and went into his NFT world, and you can he can sell all those assets, and that's like fascinating because if you can then move objects around in the virtual world, then it's definitely possible to move them around within that blockchain, whether it's Solana, whether it's your Phantom wallet, whether it's Ethereum, Bitcoin. So yes, I believe that it is possible.
Interesting. Loff suggests that blockchain spoils it all because he suggests that blockchain is actually about speculation. So people using virtual worlds are about existing and operating within the world for the sake of it, whereas the blockchain community are about speculation and making money. What do you think about that?
Yes. Yeah. And I don't want to open up a can of worms because there's a lot of hate towards the crypto community, and I believe that a lot of the scams and a lot of the bad things that have happened, kind of, you can come to that assessment, but I don't think you can judge every single platform or the intention of every developer through that lens. I believe that
Yeah.
yes, a lot of them are opportunists, and I try to stay away from that type of ethos. But I invest in all of the crypto projects just so I can understand how the stuff moves around. So I actually own worlds in the blockchain for the purpose of creating a virtual worlds museum hub. But I am not trying to police it, or I'm not trying to promote it. I'm just trying to map it
Yeah.
and understand it.
Yeah. I think what's interesting about blockchain is the technology and what it offers, rather than the way it's perhaps been used, or the way we publicly hear about it being used at the moment. So I think, Lof, you're kind of saying that too. You're just talking about goals, but there's so many layers here. And what blockchain probably offers is a very interesting technology. It's been harnessed in a particular way at the moment, but there's potential to harness it in lots of different ways.
Yes, indeed. I would like to
Uh,
answer the question of how can anyone help, because
oh, great. Thank you.
there's different paths. Um, the first and foremost is a media partnership, right? And I already think that that's kind of like just help us get the word out. You know, share our LinkedIn, share our X, share our information. You know, because what we're trying to do is really really difficult because we're not getting any financial support from industry. And although I speak at a lot of conferences, and I have a lot of moral support from academia, we are still working on a business model that that is able to make this future proof, and it's not beholden to stakeholders that are making us build it in a certain way. That's why I'm leading the charge as a director of it. But at the end of it, I would love it to be a board of curators that decide where the worlds go and how the exhibits expand or contract. The only reason I'm doing it now as the director and making all the decisions is because by committee nothing gets done. And I've worked for some of the biggest companies in the world. I've worked for many different configurations, and what I want to do is build this first. And once it's built, then a board of curators can actually, with the help of AI and with the help of UGC and user generated content, help us move the conversation forward. So the first is a media partnership. The second is, we would love to have builders help us in different platforms because we're creating these hubs. So if you have friends or you build in different platforms, the objective is to create a virtual worlds museum hub in all of the platforms that exist, and that in itself is a really grandiose vision. But that's what we're aiming for. Then we're looking for sponsorships for the different exhibits. So that'll be connecting us with organizations that see the value of what we're doing. And I have not opened up like a donations mechanism yet, like a Patreon or anything like that, but that's in the works. But most importantly is just really helping get the word out, and the fact that you guys have invited us to speak and represent this project means a lot to us. So thank you for that.
Great. Well, we're coming up to the top of the hour, and I know, Julian, you have to leave. Um, I think what you're saying about collaboration and so on is very important, and I think definitely VWEC would be happy to talk to you about any support we can provide. There's one final comment from Val that we don't have time to discuss, but she does talk about the power of small communities and small communities becoming more important as the Earth becomes connected physically and virtually. So I think we just have time to reference that, but not to discuss it. I
Yes.
would read. Yeah, go ahead.
I completely agree with that, and I think a vehicle of that to let the world know that the virtual worlds are interconnected is us working together in educating the mainstream and the masses about the potential of this technology.
Yes, indeed. And I see Ellie has suggested too that we could work together. So I'm afraid it's time to wrap up the formal part of the event, and I'd certainly like to thank Julian for a really inspiring and fascinating talk about all the really interesting things that you're doing and planning. It's been fascinating, and your generosity in sharing, I have to say, is really appreciated. So everybody, please join me in applauding our guest speaker today.
Thank you very much.
So thank you so much, Julian. I know you are under pressure and have to leave, but some of us are going to stay on for more informal chat, and I invite you all now to join us on the deck. If not, we hope to see you back here on April the 11th, when Barry Spencer, also known as Skipper Abel, will be speaking about the power of virtual simulations for teaching and learning. So thank you, everybody, and let's retire to the deck.